Welcome, everybody, to the Unlocked Life podcast. I'm here today with my dear friend Rudy. I've been excited to talk to him for a long time. Before we hit record, we were chatting about the last time we were in person together was last year, November time. Like a few people that I've got on the podcast, I met these folk in the quantum health space and an amazing retreat that we were all on together in El Salvador. And Rudy, you were there as a guest speaker. And today, yes, of course, I'm going to get you to speak on your journey. What you do, I'm sure, is entwined with how you live every single day. And what I also am going to get Rudy to speak on for all of you listening is, I suppose, like to give people a flavor of the conversations that we had in El Salvador, because it really planted a little seed in my brain around what I wanted for my life. Did I believe it was possible? How could I actually start to bring that into matter or create that, manifest that in my life? I love following you because you channel information or share information that is unlike anybody else that I'm connected with on social media. There is so much depth we can get into in this conversation. Rudy is also someone I've contacted around my spirituality and my fears. It seems to me that the more I meet people like you, Rudy, with this kind of heart and this consciousness and this ability to communicate and connect makes me feel, oh, okay, there's so much more here that I'm not even thinking about and seeing. So welcome in, Rudy. I would
Yeah.
love for you to start off. I would love to hear on your journey, like the becoming of Rudy, so to speak.
So I'll bring you with me to this moment. It's 1 a.m., March 2017, and I'm laying down in bed next to my former partner in our dark basement in Canada, scrolling through my phone like a zombie. My skin is super pale, my mind is spinning, and the blue light is shining on my face. I remember this moment very well. My eyes are burning, and I'm feeling drained physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I can't stop scrolling. Suddenly, a video popped up on my feed. I almost skipped it, but something makes me click. Artificial light is killing us. And I'm sitting there with a fog that is so thick that I can't understand anything from what Dr. Cruz is saying. But then I wake up the second morning, and throughout the whole day, there's this one sentence that keeps echoing back in my mind. And it goes, "You can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick." And I was like, wow, could this be the reason for everything I've been going through? The lack of energy, the constant fatigue, the depression. Could this be it? And the answer to this question changed everything. And what happened next is unbelievable. The most beautiful part is that I start discovering the science to prove it way after I embodied it.
Oh,
The quality of our life is entirely dependent on the quality of light that is entering our eyes. I grew up in the Middle East, in Lebanon. And ever since I was a kid, my teacher thought that I'm hopeless. And my parents really thought that there's not much that I could do, that I'm a crazy kid. So I was labeled with ADHD. And to me, Maria, the classroom has always felt like a prison. I was asked to sit still, to memorize, and to repeat. And I was sitting under those LED lights where I could hear that buzzing noise from them. And it was absolutely rapturing my soul. My only escape from that prison was becoming a rebellious kid. I did crazy things. And all I wanted was to be outside. Like I would do things
yeah.
like throwing an apple on the teacher or strategically positioning bottle of inks on the edge of the teacher's desk, waiting in anticipation for the moment when the teacher is gonna get angry and slam the desk, and just watching the teacher get slammed with the ink. And by the time I was 17, I was asked to leave 7 different schools. Looking
Can't
back,
imagine. I can't imagine
yes,
it.
it's so funny. I always had this one goal in mind. I wanted to leave the classroom and be outside. As I got older, I got exhausted from fighting. And I did something that breaks my heart. I gave up on myself and I lost my connection with my inner light and with my inner knowing. I became a night owl, doing a lot of drugs, staying up late, constantly feeling tired, low on energy, and unmotivated all day long. And somehow I managed to get an engineering degree. I loved mathematics and physics, frankly. But despite looking like a fit, young, muscular engineer on the outside, I was drowning, literally. I had zero sense of purpose. I lost my health. I lost my enthusiasm. And I even lost my job. No matter what I tried, climbing freezing mountains with Wim Hof, minus 20 degrees and shorts, trying every diet imaginable. I cut down on
Mhm.
sugar, processed food, veganism, keto, carnivore, ancestral diet. And I was taking all the best adaptogens and supplements for mitochondrial health and brain function. But still, I felt the same, lost and completely disconnected. So in this moment, I said, screw it all. I no longer care about what society is expecting from me. I no longer care about my career and about being a successful engineer. So I decided to leave everything and I fled to Canada, almost like a refugee escaping from war. And I ended up in this dark basement with my former partner in the same place where I watched that video about artificial light. Now, my former partner, bless her, she helped me a lot, but she was really desperate because I was suicidal depressive in that moment. And when she heard about that video that I listened to, and knowing that I tried everything, she was desperate. So she came to me and she's like, Rudy, pack your stuff. We're going to volunteer on an organic farm in northern Quebec with indigenous people. And I was like, full of doubt, like thinking, how the heck shoveling cow manure is going to help me? We are driving for 7 hours from Ontario to Quebec on this windy road. The car is bouncing on this dirt path. And it feels like we're going to nothingness. We arrived and there's no electricity, no artificial lights, no Wi Fi, no distraction, just us in our little tent. And here we are camping for 6 weeks. For the first time in my life, the only source of light after the sunset was coming from fire and from candlelight. So it's day one, May 2017. The roosters were so loud and they woke me up around dawn. And I wake up feeling exhausted. My body is so tired. And I remember that moment very well. I did not want to be outside. I did not want to speak to anybody. I'm so depressed. The last thing I want is farmers asking me questions. It was so hard, but I made it. On day three, something absolutely unexpected happens. I wake up with no alarm clock, but this time with a big smile on my face. I feel a surge of energy. I couldn't help but smile. I was, wow, this is new. This is different. My partner is next to me, and I look at her, and for the first time, I see her through fresh new eyes. I open the door of the tent, I step outside, and oh my God, Maria, it felt like a baby who was just born. And looking around, and like the world around me is glowing with the magical light of the dawn. Birds are singing, nature is speaking to me. It's absolutely mesmerizing. And the night owl in me, who stayed up late until 2 a.m., is now sleeping shortly after the sunset.
Wow.
I was like, wow, what is going on? I didn't change my diet. I wasn't taking any of the supplements that the health experts told me to take. And here I am, living a whole new reality and
Mm.
having the energy to see myself as a complete new version of myself. And what happened that completely shattered my old paradigm, like every day I was on the farming field, tending to the plants, to the animals. And on this day, the farmer comes to me and he says, Rudy, what a powerful focus you have. I've never seen anything like it. I literally went into complete nothingness, a vacuum. Everything disappeared. And it was in this moment that I realized everything I thought to be wrong with me,
Yeah.
my ADHD, my depression, my chronic fatigue, it wasn't about me. It was my light environment. That was a very profound moment that changed me forever. And for the first time in my life, I had the energy and resourcefulness within myself to reimagine myself as a complete whole new being and to reconstruct that
Mm,
dialogue that continued to happen inside of my mind. No matter how much you change on the outside, what needs to change first is the inner dialogue that is happening on the inside. And that which happening on the outside is a mere reflection of what is going on inside. So those things that you're telling yourself, those desires that you are having, those emotions that you walk with, they are either like a backpack full of rocks that is weighing you down, or they could become the most beautiful wings that allow you to soar and to fly
mm.
and to become who you are meant to be. I realized those things. I came back to the city, and within a matter of a few weeks, it all comes crashing back at me. The
Wow.
negativity, the fog, the exhaustion, the night owl tendencies. So it was in this moment I was like, no, 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 I'm not going back there. And I made this decision that I'm figuring this out. Like, what is this? So I turned into a mad scientist with the farm becoming my laboratory. For over 4 years, I did nothing in my life but traveling between the city and the farm, living with indigenous people in a way that
Wow.
is in complete alignment with nature's light and dark cycles, and asking myself one question: what is light? And what is going on? And I was doing a lot of meditation during that period of time. I was doing a lot of vipassana. So I would go and sit in silence for 10 days and I would ask myself, who am I? What is light? What is God? And throughout those 4 years, I was documenting every shift in my sleep, in my energy, in my mood, and I was devouring every book I could find on the science of light so I can solve the light problem. And what I discovered is absolutely shocking, which we could talk about as this conversation unfolds.
I'm so curious about, so you've already weaved in this idea. I want to go back to when you spoke on the concept of our beliefs are going to be rocks or they're going to be wings. And it reminds me of one of our conversations. I remember it was sunset. We were all watching the sunset, and I remember chatting to you. You told me something really profound, and it has stuck with me ever since. In fact, it really lodged into my brain and has impacted all the people I work with because it used to be very health focused, nutrition, movement, and even light. I still bring in so much of the light, but it took it to this next level, even the best light routine. And we still need to give energy and intention to what is the rock I'm carrying around? What is the stories that I'm telling myself about? What do I believe is possible for me? What's possible for them, but it's never possible for me, and vice versa. One of the things you told me about, you were like, Maria, every single night before I go to sleep, I imagine what is the highest potential that I want for myself. And I feel what it would be like to have it. The most important part is that you feel it. When you're lying in bed, you feel it. And you were like, that is how things come around. And I was like, what? Okay, I'll try that. And it's made such a difference. Before we hit record, I was telling Rudy that, I never would have thought that I would be able to work online, to travel. I have plans now to go to Mexico with Rudy and Asher and other folks and where they're based. And things that I probably have wanted for myself for a long time that I didn't think was possible. Now I start to see that I was the only one holding me back. Did that come from those years that you spent in silence or studying or researching? When did this real connection to life, to God, to belief for your human potential come around?
I think as a kid, that was one of the reasons why my teachers could not comprehend and understand me. And my parents thought that I'm crazy. Ever since I was a kid, I could go out in nature and I could hear with inner ears that which
Mm,
others cannot hear, the music of the spheres. I
mm,
could see with inner eyes the beauty of everything and the connectedness of everything. And anytime I was put in an environment that is absolutely unbalanced and that is lacking the rhythmic heartbeat of
mm,
nature, I would suffocate and I would do anything to put myself outside of that environment. And eventually, after years of fighting,
yeah.
I got tired and I got disconnected from myself and I lost that which has always been with me. The reality is, we think that we learn something that brings us the knowledge to God or to who we really are. But in reality, we don't learn any of that. All of this is already within us. And what happens is somehow, because of the programming that we go through, we forget. We forget our divinity. And one of the most torturing things about living in a body is that it's dominated by two main things. First one is your senses, and the second one is your divinity. And your senses is that which is in motion. And if you think about it, we spend most of our life literally living our lives from the senses, from that which we can see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. Underneath the senses, there is a 0 point that centers those senses. And that 0 point is what I call our divinity. It's so easy when we live in this world to lose touch with that which is divine, because that which is divine is the undivided stillness. And because we live in our senses cannot react to stillness. Our
Mhm.
senses can only react to motion.
What do you mean
Yeah.
by motion?
Yes. That which is moving, the wave.
Yeah.
And
Can you speak on the wave a little bit for anybody who isn't familiar with invisible wavelengths, visible in terms of the
yes.
senses and waves?
So the thing about light, most people think of light as the light that is coming from a light bulb or the light that is traveling from the sun. In reality, there's only one thing in this whole universe. There's a light wave in motion. And when this light wave in motion hits our eye, we call it light. When it
Mm,
hits our ears, we call it sound. When it hits our tongue, we call it taste. So there is but one thing, which is a light wave in motion interacting with our senses. And that is the full spectrum of what we call waves in motion, which range the colors of the rainbow, what we see, the blue, green, yellow, orange, red. And what we don't see, which come from the sun, is UV light, UVA, UVB, and infrared. But there's also a wide range. This is only 1/10 billion of the actual spectrum of waves.
mhm,
And all of these waves are eternally there. And it's what connects everything to everything else. Our senses are wired to react to motion. One of the most difficult parts for us in this modern world is how can we go beyond our senses and connect back to that stillness, which is the divine in us.
mm,
And one of the best ways I have found I could explain this concept to people is by helping them think about a seesaw. When I ask this question, almost everybody respond the same thing. So my question is, when you see the seesaw in motion, where is the energy coming from? Most people will say it's coming from the lever.
Yeah,
But the
one
reality
side or
is,
the other.
It's not coming from the lever, and your senses are deceiving you.
Yeah.
Here's where it's coming from. It's coming from the fulcrum, 0 point, from which the lever is borrowing its power.
Mm.
Now
Yeah.
bring yourself back to yourself. Think about energy and think about power. Energy and power is not coming from where you think it's coming. It's actually coming from that 0 point in
Mm.
you, a
Mhm.
stillness, the undivided energy that I call the divine in you
Yeah.
and in me. And until we learn how to go beyond that which is in motion and center ourselves back to that zero, we live our life like automatons,
Yeah.
memorizing and repeating, but not creating. Because
Mhm.
creation is not in motion, in that 0 point where motion is borrowing its power from.
Would you say the motion is the secondary effect of the creation? The creation is all of that energy, and it's like, okay, you go do this now, you go do that. And what we tend to do is just the effect of that creative power, the 0 point in the stillness in the center.
That's a beautiful point, Maria, because you're touching on something phenomenal. You're touching on cause and
Yeah.
effect, and you're touching on reality and the manifestation of reality. Most people live their life in effect and they confuse it for cause.
Mhm.
Most people think of reality as reality when in fact it's the manifestation of
Mhm.
reality. So, as an example of this,
Yeah.
take a guitar,
Yeah.
and the idea of sound is eternally present in that guitar. But it's not until you pluck that guitar and you create
Mhm.
that vibration that sound emerges from the silence and is swallowed back by the silence. Your senses respond to the sound, but they
Mhm.
cannot perceive the silence from which the sound is emerging. Now, while this sounds very philosophical, it actually centers everything in our life. And if you were to give this deep thought, you'll realize that you live in a two-way universe of action reaction. This whole universe and our ability to create is dependent on the two-way opposing forces that are interchanging at all levels. Think about your inhalation and exhalation. It's this 1 2 1 2 rhythmic exchange. Think about sleep and wakefulness. It's this 1 2 rhythmic
Mhm.
exchange. Think about man and woman and their
Mhm.
ability to co-create a life. It's this rhythmic interchange between opposing forces that must
Mhm.
interchange in balance in order to create beauty, love, and peace. You could trace problems to a lack of balance in the transactions between you and other human beings, or in a given environment when you are sitting under that LED light. Why does this LED light make you sick? Because it's lacking the balance between the opposing forces on the spectrum of light. Sunlight has symmetry between opposing forces that interchange in the quantum biophysics field. UV light is always balanced with infrared light. Blue light is always balanced with red light.
Mhm.
They come together symbiotically. Those opposing forces of yin and yang are a
Mhm.
package, one lead to the other. When we expose ourselves to LEDs that are spiking in the blue only and lacking in the balance from the opposing spectrum, that is what creates the inflammation.
Yeah.
But underneath the inflammation is the word lack of balance. And if we are to apply that methodology into everything that we do, into our thinking, into our decision making, into our relationships, into our businesses, into our desires. Balance your desires, and your desire will bless you. When you have unbalanced desires of taking but not giving, your desire will smite you in the face because you are taking actions that are out of balance. You are free to do what you want to do. However, the universe will hold the reaction to your actions. You cannot control the reactions. You can only control your actions. And you could always know how well you are doing by the fruits that you are harnessing in your life. You could know them from their fruits. Now, what does that mean?
Tell tangibly, what does that mean?
You could look at yourself and look at the results that are happening in your life. And there's one person to blame for the lack of results,
Mhm.
for amazing results. It's you. Underneath this is the thoughts and the decision making process that is prompting your action. Your thoughts and decisions are either balanced or unbalanced. When they are balanced, they multiply the reflection back into your life, and you see that in actual results. When they are unbalanced, they multiply in the results of your life. You see that in misery, sickness, loss of relationships, corruption, loss of your business.
Can you give us an example really that you've experienced in your own life in regards to this idea of the balance, the give to receive, whatever comes to your mind?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question and reflection. For most of my life, I grew up around a mother who is an absolute giver. She lives her life continuously looking around her and tapping into the needs of others. The one program that runs in her mind is giving and giving. As her son, I received so much from her. And I could never fathom how this relationship between son and mother, of me taking and my mother giving, was actually hurting both of us without us realizing it. And it wasn't until I realized that every action must be balanced with its equal and opposite reaction. For the flow of energy to continue moving, every giving must be met with an equal re-giving. This is how nature continuously multiply itself. And I noticed that in my relationship with my mom, I was the unconscious taker and she was the
Mm.
unconscious giver. And there was no equal interchange. So the moment I realized that, I said, no more. I sat down and explained that concept to my mother and helped her understand how she is hurting people around her by giving without noticing whether this person is worthy of being given in this moment, whether this person has the capacity to re-give. Because if you notice, the universe will never give you more than what you can give from yourself.
Mm.
The first law of this
Yeah.
universe is that you must give first, and the universe will meet you halfway. That is universal law.
And when you
And if
say you must give first, what you give yourself, you'll also receive. Does that then bring us to this idea of how much we value, respect, love, take care of ourselves, of our body, of our well being, if we want to expect that to be given to us from other people? Is that what you mean?
absolutely, I mean, you must love yourself. You must tend yourself so that you are able to love others and tend to others. But what I noticed and what I realized, even this idea of self love, there are nuances to it.
Mm.
Because which self are we talking about? Is it the small s or the capital S? There's a
Mm.
massive difference between those two.
Mhm.
The small s is what I look at the body and the desires of the body, while the big S is that divine in you, which is omnipresent, omnipotent, and forever loving. In my own life, is that if I want love, the first thing I think, how can I give love? And by me giving love, it's universal law that love must be re-given to me. The idea is that you don't do it from a mindset of like, oh, if I give, then I'll be re-given. No, it
Yeah.
becomes, you become entranced in the ecstasy of giving.
Yeah.
And that giving breeds natural re-giving because the path is not a straight line. It's a circle.
That comes
It's
back
not,
to,
it's moving in a spiral motion.
yeah. I read somewhere recently about the idea of healing within partnership, but I know that it applies to people at all times. That in me providing the tenderness and the love and the care that I needed when I was little, and me providing that for my partner, for my friend, for my mom, whatever it might be, that is automatically directing that bounce of energy onto the same wound in myself. So in me
Mm.
doing it and giving it, that's what I'm providing that healing for myself. I imagine that that's what you're talking about there.
Yes, I think this universe is a mirror.
Yeah.
It,
Hmm.
it gives back to you that which you gives into it. And the one thing I wished my parents taught me as a kid is I wish they taught me how to give first. Because the number one mistake that most parents do to their kids, they teach them how to become takers.
Mhm.
They get them all these gifts without ever planting the seed of what are you willing to give from yourself to be worthy of receiving that gift. And here, when
Yeah.
I say worthy of receiving, it's not about like self worth or this idea of people start talking about that sabotaging voice of not being worthy enough. I'm talking about earning it. And you earn it by giving from yourself first.
Mhm.
And when kids are taught at a very young age to give first, that will plant the seed of success in their mind. Because every successful person is actually the reason why they are successful is because there's one thing that they obsess over.
You
What
think?
can I give today?
Yeah.
What can I give today?
Yeah. Mhm.
And Maria, this is the one question that I sleep with and wake up with. This is the question that guides my imagination because I notice my imagination gets blocked when I'm in my selfish self. But when I start thinking universally, when I go beyond from that little self and expand my mind and allow my mind to become one with the universal mind and ask myself with earnest desire in my heart, what can I give this world? That's when everything blows up. That's when God speaks to you because now you're worthy of speaking with God.
And that is also when you're going to feel the repercussions of that because you're giving first. And then you're going to receive the exact same feelings through those experiences.
Absolutely. And to circle back about your question, you mentioned, Rudy, you told me you never fall asleep
Mhm.
without tapping into that state
Yeah.
of already having and already knowing that which you desire to have and to know and to give. What I will say is that sleep is a very powerful time because during sleep, we are severing our senses from our brain. And in that severance, we go back to stillness. And that is what sleep really. We go back into our divinity.
And I'm curious really about your take on dreams because I notice for me, it doesn't always feel like a still night's rest. It feels like color and fear and visions and messages. I'm curious about your take on that.
Absolutely. If you think about it, if we go into a healthy sleep cycle, scientists tells you that the brain waves go from beta waves to alpha waves to delta waves. Notice what is happening. The waves are actually going from a rapid state of motion to a much slower state of motion that is explained by the fact that our senses are being severed from our consciousness. So that
Yeah.
which is in motion, that which is vibrating, is calming down.
Yeah.
Now, oftentimes when we go to sleep, we enter sleep states from a place of fear, worry, from a place of doubt.
Yeah.
And that inhibits our full ability for us to completely rest in the divine light of stillness as we sleep. That cause forms disturbances that trigger certain memories in our nervous system, disrupting dreams. I notice that I have full control over my dream states. In fact, when we go to sleep, we're not in dream states all of the time. So we're entering REM and then NREM and then back to REM. So we're going into those cycles. But after years of practicing, what I noticed is that I could actually choose what I want to dream about.
Hi.
So here's my practice. Every night, I watch the sunset, and that's very important information that tell my nervous system and my body that it's time to wind down for the senses to start slowly getting severed from
Mhm.
consciousness. Without that, it's impossible to visit that stillness that I speak about at night. Most people spend their lives watching TV, scrolling on social media, doing all these engaging and stimulating things before they go to bed. What they don't realize is that they're actually going against their natural evolution, because at night you are meant to exhale, are meant to
Mhm.
sleep. Sleep is a state in which it's the opposite of wakefulness. You are moving away from your senses into the still point inside of you. My practice is that I watch the sunset, I allow that natural decompression to happen. I come back home and I wear my Viva Rays glasses, making sure there's no artificial light entering my eyes, because blue light entering your eyes at that time will cause your body to start secreting the wrong hormones at the wrong time. You don't want cortisol in your body at night. You want that melatonin to flow in your system. Melatonin is not only the highest antioxidant in nature, but it also activates the cellular cleaning crew, autophagy, and apoptosis. It's essentially terms that describe the mechanisms that our cells go through every night to replace old cells with new cells and to repair damaged cells and make
Mhm.
them vital and vibrant again. So all of this happen at an autonomic level. We don't need to think about it. All we need to do is put ourselves in the right environment, and the body does its work. When your brain waves naturally start moving from beta to alpha to theta, that's a great opportunity to
Mhm.
actually familiarize yourself with that state of universal mind in you that is always there. It's omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, and is always there for you, but it's masked by the distraction of the senses. And when your brain waves drop from beta to alpha to theta, that's a great opportunity to familiarize yourself with that place. The more you visit that place of divine stillness in you, and the more you find your path and your way to that place, it becomes a moment to moment conversation with God,
Mhm.
which God is not like a figure outside of you sitting up in the sky watching over you. God is your own divinity. It's centering every cell of you. And the more you train yourself to go beyond the senses and take advantage of entering sleep states and visiting that place and allowing yourself to go into that stillness, I induce almost a form of thoughts or affirmations where I invite myself to go into the ecstasy of inner knowing. And that inner ecstasy is the perpetual state of God's mind. And it's also your state of mind when you allow yourself to become one with the divine.
Yeah.
So, in this moment, you have a wonderful opportunity to meet that divine self in you through stillness. And only when you are in that still place, you naturally start feeling that inner ecstasy and exaltation encompassing your being. Now you could speak to the universe, speak to God about that problem that is bugging you, the innovation that you want to create, or the piece of knowledge that you want to acquire to serve your fellow human beings. And it's in this state that you receive through the language of light, which is wordless, but in it is all meaning. And when you fall asleep in that state with a big smile, it's a natural smile that comes to your face. You
Mhm.
can't help it but smile. You can't help it but feel this absolute warmth and love and joy and the ecstasy of your oneness with universal mind. And then you can't help it but wake up from that same state. And night after night, as you practice, you'll start visiting dreamland from that state of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll start having control over your dreams. Your dreams become a state in which you are the perfect station to receive that which you want to give to others. That which you want to have is yours now to give, have, or no in the
Yeah.
asking. But you must have a pure heart. You must have a pure intention. And you must connect all of this to a desire to help others.
So I'm imagining people listening, right? And let's say they have never heard of this concept of being in stillness, severing from the senses. In my head, I imagine it that we are on land, everything's colorful and tasty, and there's fun happening, and there's so much that is exciting and worrying and scary. And when we are able to jump into the water, when we can't hear anything anymore, we're in this pool of quiet and stillness. When we can enter into that, what I'm understanding is from that place, that's when we're able to get the messages, the knowing, the information about things we're struggling with, or ideas or inspiration. I'm curious, Rudy, and I also want to know this for myself in terms of what that looks like for people. So they've done sunset, they're wearing their blue blockers, they can feel their heart rate lowering, they can feel themselves getting drowsy, they're excited to go to sleep. Can you talk us through, for someone who's never really looked at meditation, never really sat in stillness, maybe they're even worried to be with their own thoughts or to be in stillness? How do they do that? What does being in that 0 point before sleep actually look like for someone who's starting off?
Yeah, there are so many people that share different techniques. And I think there's no one technique that is the absolute truth for everybody. It's a process of experimenting of what is it like for me to encounter the divine. Each of us have different processes. Now, some of the things that have worked for me, the first thing is you must eliminate all stimulating things from your environment. It's non-negotiable that you create a space that is free from electronics, free from noise,
Mhm.
free from anything that is stimulating. And then you sit in that space. One thing that I used to do in the past, I haven't done for a while, is I would light up a candle and I will sit in front of a candle and I will put all of my attention on that natural flickering that is
Mhm.
happening. Now,
Mhm.
naturally, this flickering hypnotize you
Mhm.
into more stillness. Why is that? Because the candle follows the natural rhythm of the universe. It's this 1 2 1 2 expansion contraction rhythm, which you find in your own breathing, in your heartbeat, in the rhythm of your walking, this 1 2 1 2 beat as you walk. This is a universal rhythm that brings you back to your universality. By
Right.
sitting in front of a candle and watching that natural flicker, that will allow you to perhaps visit that place. Some other techniques that I like to use when I'm stimulated, I like to sit down and feel my feet grounded, touching the floor, spine is straight, relaxing the shoulder, relaxing the neck, closing the eyes, putting both palms on the chest, and then starting to notice that 1 2 1 2 rhythmic heartbeat and
Right.
observe and allow yourself to immerse yourself in the 1 2 1 2 rhythmic experience of your heart. And slowly start imagining that this heartbeat is not my little self's heartbeat. What if this
Mhm.
heartbeat is actually the universal
Yeah.
heartbeat? What if
Okay.
everything in this world is actually contracting and expanding and experiencing this 1 2 1 2 rhythmic heartbeat? And the thought and the exaltation of this idea literally brings me back into the divinity which I am. Another way of doing this is close your eyes and you start slowly inhaling and exhaling from your nose. And the invitation would be to focus on the pauses between the inhalation and the exhalation. There's a
Yeah.
natural silence that happens in between. It's absolute void, absolute nothingness. And yet, within that nothingness is everything. If you relax your body and pay attention to the beauty of that silence in between the inhalation and the exhalation, that could be your pathway to that inner stillness in yourself.
So choosing a practice that really brings your body all the way down and also allows the mind, even if it's chattering, even if there's many things going around, really allowing it to be there, but also bring in the intention to go closer to that in between. That's what's going to override all of the chatter, all of the fear. We don't have to clear them away. We just need to direct our attention to the quiet, the in between.
Yes, the mere knowing that knowledge and power are in stillness and
Mm.
not in the wave of motion will make you desire stillness more.
It makes me want to
And,
go do it now.
and the more you desire that stillness, the more you desire to be alone with the universal mind, the more you desire to be one with the light of all knowing, the more you will find your way. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the techniques in the world. In fact, techniques could trap you. None of those techniques I shared with you may work for you. But the one thing that will work is your desire for that oneness, that desire to be alone with God, that desire to speak with your divinity. And the more intense that desire is, the greater your ability to revisit that place. And what I will tell you, and it's not what you will expect, this place I'm talking about is not a place you're only meant to visit cross legged under a tree. This becomes a moment to moment communion with the universe.
Mm.
This is the source from which you draw this effervescent energy, that inspiration. Have you ever met somebody, you look in their eyes and you feel like, wow, this person is alive? I guarantee
Yeah.
you, it's not because they're taking supplements or eating a diet
Not
that
there.
you're, nope.
Yeah.
It's not that. Energy doesn't come from any of that. Energy comes from desire. And it's desire that is literally the fuel that allow us to achieve anything we want in life. When we find the secret of making our desire a universal desire, now we've tapped into something phenomenal.
Feels like there's layers to this and it's all so simple at the same time. And for anybody who's listening, that's like, wow, what is this? But there's something resonating. What I've understood is this vital energy in us, that sparkle. I remember the first time I met you being like, wow, this guy has got glitter coming out of him. There was this energy about you. And I think we were all talking about surfing or something. It wasn't anything big or philosophical, but it's amazing how the people that you meet that you feel that sparkly energy off. So I think it's so cool that you've explained it to me in that way, that the reason why we notice the energy in these people are because they have tapped in to that stillness. And that stillness, as you've explained, is where all the magic and all the creation and all the power is. It's not so much the doing. We've all felt that before where we are doing constantly thinking that is going to create the magic, but we just feel burnt out. There's nothing inherently wrong with the doing, but we need to suck it back up into the still point first. And from that place, decide, okay, if I were to give my energy to giving to others, to being a vessel that is going to help or serve others today, what would that look like? And that is where the sparkly energy comes from. And when we're able to do that, that is when we receive that yin yang response back, where everything that we're putting out, we receive back. I hope I've got that all summarized.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful summary. And it's so easy to get lost in the doing. And
Yeah.
as you said, doing is great and we need action, but action must spring from stillness. And action must spring from that divine center in our own selves. Otherwise, we are just acting from a place of programming. We are doing things that others have taught us to do that may not be in alignment with what we are meant to be doing here on earth. So we must
Mm.
learn to listen. And
Yeah.
when we listen, we receive. And when we receive, we need to have the courage to trust. And when we have the courage to trust, we need to discipline ourselves to do the right action. And when we do the right action, we will know because it will be met with an equal and opposite reaction that will flourish and take us where we are meant to go. And it's not an easy cycle because it's
Yeah.
so easy to get lost what others think is right and wrong. And it's so easy to get lost in what others want from us. While it's very important to stay in tune with others, it's also equally important to stay in tune with that bigger self. I'm not talking about the small
Yeah.
s, I'm talking
Yeah.
about the big S, and there's a massive difference. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about, oh, my body told me I want ice cream, so I'm going to disregard what others around me here want and go eat ice cream because I have self love. No, this is selfishness, not self love. And it's okay. Sometimes that selfishness arises and we must allow it to arise and we must observe ourselves and choose for ourselves as well. Maybe we want to be in that selfish self and that's okay for us.
Mhm.
And it's not because a curly guy, tanned boy that looked like Tarzan on a podcast with
That
Maria is talking about being one with the divine, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing for you now. You may
yeah.
be really needing something else in this very moment.
Yeah.
And whatever you are needing will give you your greatest lessons. And in fact, all the unbalanced acts, which you call evil or bad, there's no evil or bad in all of nature. The universe is always giving back to you that which you are giving into it for the purpose of you learning.
Yeah.
If that
Mhm.
doesn't happen to us, if the universe was this, like some people say, how does God allow something like this to happen? And I say to people, do you really think God is controlling your actions? You are creating whatever you are creating in your life through your own decision making process and through the actions that you're putting out. God does brilliantly. He holds the key for the reaction. Oftentimes, we look at our conditions and circumstances and results, and we blame everything but ourselves. We say, oh, I didn't have that. It wasn't the right time. This person did not help me. I wasn't born rich. I was born in this country, and, it's a country of war. There were no opportunities. But to be honest, coming from Lebanon, a place that was bombarded by wars ever since I was born, and coming from poverty as well, I could guarantee you that we are the only ones who are responsible for this moment. Nothing outside of ourselves has the power to shape how we think about the situation. Okay, so this action reaction sequence is what determine the results in our life. Instead of having the program of asking ourselves first, oh, what went wrong outside of me? The invitation is, what if we switch that question from what went wrong outside of me to what is actually going on inside of me?
Right now.
And when we switch that question, I guarantee you the answers will flow to you because we are in this life experiencing this lifetime in this body for this purpose of learning to live a life of balance. I truly believe that if there's one thing in this whole world that we are trying to learn as a humanity is the law of balance. How can we show up in a balanced way with fellow human beings? If you look back at history, the one thing that continuously destroyed our civilizations is the act of taking wealth to acquire wealth. Big civilizations that have built themselves and destroyed themselves. The one reason those civilizations got destroyed is because they were taking wealth to acquire wealth. And we are here in this new era, the dawn of consciousness. It's an era where millions of people are awakening to that divine light within and that
Mm.
yearning for manifesting balance in our life. And we are all here for the sake purpose of learning that one lesson, that in order to acquire wealth, we need to give wealth and not take wealth. And in order to have love in our life, we need to learn how to give love.
All coming back to that same thing, isn't it? So many
It
themes of
is.
this conversation, it all comes back to the balance of the seesaw on that point in the middle. So
Yes.
needed to keep it balanced. What do I want? How can I give it?
Absolutely beautifully
Yeah.
said, because it all comes back to the undivided, that 0 point. In esoteric Christianity, they talk about the Trinity. The Bhagavad Gita talks about the same things, but in different words. Think of that 0 point of stillness, the divided, which is the two unbalanced light wave of motion, and the
Mhm.
united, which is that Trinity, where the yin and yang come together as one and balance each other out.
Yeah.
And that extends into every aspect of our life, every aspect.
Mm.
Even man and woman relation is but that law of balance interchange between the masculine and the feminine. And we must learn how to bring both together as equal and opposite forces in order to experience the fruit of union.
Wow. So the coming back to the whole point, or not the whole point, but the title of this conversation or this podcast really is the unlocked life. There are two things I want to ask you to finish up on. The first thing is, and I know this will link into everything we've just spoken on, what are the ways or how do you create for yourself a life that feels unlocked from systems, from the conditioning, from things that you were told you had to do? You have unlocked a lot, but today, 2026, what does the unlocked life actually mean for you?
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. The unlocked life to me means first to slow down and to notice, am I living from a place of authenticity? Am I living from within myself? Or am I just moving along the crowd, doing whatever everybody else is doing? So, first, slowing down and noticing. And second, making a decision. Do I want to move along with the crowd and do whatever everybody else is doing? Or do I want to be true to myself, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when others around me will not like me, even when people in the circle sitting with me may think that I'm being harsh or that I'm not loving and that I don't have empathy and all of this bullshit. There's a fine line between living true to yourself and living to the expectations of others. It's a beautiful dance and it must be met with balance. Oftentimes, what I notice is when I sit in a circle with other people, most people are acting instead
Mhm.
of actually being themselves. They're showing up to the circle and they're trying to be somebody and they're trying to continuously pay attention to the reactions of others and adjusting that self so that they meet the expectation of other people in the circle. And the way you show up in a circle is the way you show up in life. If you are showing up in life where you are continuously concerned about what others are saying about you and whether they're agreeing or disagreeing and trying to fit yourself into their construct, I feel so sorry for you because essentially you are not living. You are
Mm.
tiptoeing to death, hoping you
Yeah,
make it safe, living from that most genuine and authentic part of yourself, even when others will hate you for it.
that's when you're free.
They- yes, they will hate you at first, but then they will follow along after. So don't worry.
Yeah.
If they don't follow along, don't worry.
The last question, Rudy, I want to ask you is what is one belief that you live by?
Is it one belief that I had and that I deconstructed, or is it a new belief that I acquired?
A new belief that you acquired that really anchors you?
Yeah, to be honest, I used to be very confused about the concept of God. And I used to also be very confused about the concept of faith and belief.
Mm.
And when people ask me to believe in something and have faith, I was hesitant of that concept. What does it mean to have faith? And there's great examples of people who had faith in something they did not actually understand, and it brought them good fruits just because they had faith in something. But then what I learned and realized is that there's a stage beyond belief and beyond faith called knowing. And when you have a knowing, you no longer rely on faith, because now you don't
Yeah.
need to believe in something you don't understand. And that understanding doesn't need to come from your senses. I learned that I shouldn't be seeking understanding from my senses. And that literally freed me from the prison of continuously wanting to acquire information to prove to myself that I'm good enough. Because we were raised to think that we are good enough if we can memorize and repeat. And we have a generation of people who are addicted to reading books, listening to podcasts, and reading blogs for the sake of acquiring information so
Mm.
that we could memorize and repeat and appear to be smart. And I think when I realized that none of that is true to me and that knowledge cannot be acquired via information and that faith could be transcended by inner knowing, that brought me so much freedom.
And that's what you're tapping into whenever you go toward that stillness, that still point, that
Knowledge.
desire, desire, as you say, to commune with your divinity. Oh my God, what a phrase. It's so nice. That is where
Yes,
that
because
knowing
I
come from.
Maria, I learned, Maria, that it's only in this place that I acquire true knowledge. And I
Mm,
also learned that information is not knowledge
mm,
until you actually digest that information into the depth of your soul and consciousness, and that you become embodied. That information is merely a record that is recorded on the tape of your brain, and your brain
mm,
is not your mind. You hear people talk about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And I truly believe that this concept comes from the senses, because we're still thinking of the mind as something stratified. We're looking at the mind as something physical, and we're trying to
mm.
stratify it as
Yeah.
this is the conscious part, this is the subconscious. But in reality, when I sit in my meditation, I know that mind is omniscient. Mind is not a thing, and mind is not something that could be perceived through the senses. And
Yeah.
there's only consciousness. Therefore, a state of subconsciousness is impossible. And that which
Hmm.
we call conscious is, I believe, what people are referring to is that divine self in us. And they like to
Hmm.
refer to it as the subconscious. But
Hmm.
there's no state of unconsciousness or subconsciousness. There's consciousness just is.
Wow, I've never thought about that before. And that makes a lot of sense. It's our mind and our divinity, or sorry, the stories and our divinity, that sort of duel between the two. I've loved this conversation. Oh my gosh. I knew it was going to be good, but that was fire. I loved it. Thank you so much
Love
for
it.
taking the time. It was really nice to get to know you on that deeper level outside of, for anybody who has not come across Rudy, Rudy is the co-founder of Viva Rays, Rudy and his sister, which is so cool. The story of that company has come from Rudy's journey with trying to figure out light and health and how to make that accessible for people, especially when they are living in this modern world. So Viva Rays, blue blockers, people who have been listening to this will know I talk about blue blockers all the time. But it was lovely to meet this side of you, Rudy, beyond just business and just light, even though light is everything, of course. I love this conversation and thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I told you that in the beginning when I was meditating a lot and I had this like question on my heart, like continuously being asked, who am I and what is light? And what we describe when I speak about light in my presentation, I'm speaking about the light in motion. And I refer to that as the small L, whereas the capital L is
Mm.
that light of all knowing, which is that stillness from which the light of motion emerges and come back to. So just wanted to clarify on that point.
It's funny, whenever you said that, I wanted to ask the still point, the divinity. is that light as well. So yes, it is. It's not in motion, but it's still light. Yeah.
Yes. A good way to think about it is the ocean and its majesty. It's undivided. And when you divide the ocean, you get the waves. And the waves
Mm,
emerge from the undivided oneness and come back to the undivided oneness. So think of the divinity or the still magnetic light as the undivided ocean, and of the light of motion as a disturbance of the undivided into the divided.
yeah. That's where the waves are coming from. Wow. Okay. Love it. I'll chat to you very soon and have a lovely rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.